Hey there, this is 5-3, solving polynomial equations. We're actually going to do this lesson in 2 days, so this is the first part. You can see here on the first slide is all the factoring patterns that you should know, and then there is a new set down here at the bottom. Right, so we're going to learn today sum and difference of two cubes. I'll write it when we get to those problems. The other one that we haven't done this year, but you have done before that we're about to go over is grouping. So remember, factoring by grouping happens when you have four terms, right? When you have four terms. So you put it in standard form, and then you group it. You make a group out of the first two terms, and then you make a group out of the last two terms. So you find the greatest common factor of the first group, which would be x squared, which leaves inside x plus 3. Then you find the greatest common factor of the second group, which is 4. It's a positive 4, and since it's not the first term, you have to put that plus in front. So if you bring out a 4, it leaves inside x plus 3, and we're still equal to 0. So what you can see happens, it's magic. What's left inside is the same. So instead of writing it like this, we could write the x plus 3 one time, and then take the outsides and write them in the first factor together, x squared plus 4. Because you can see you're actually doing the same thing, right? If we're going to multiply x plus 3 by x squared, and then we're going to multiply x plus 3 by 4, that same thing is happening down here in black, right? We would distribute the x squared like happens in the red, and then we would distribute the 4 like happens in the blue. But now you can see this is in factored form, right? We're multiplying two factors together. So we know if that equals 0, then either one or both of them equals 0. So just like we've seen in previous chapters, we take those factors, set them equal to 0, and solve them. So the easy one, of course, x plus 3 equals 0. We get a solution of negative 3, because we're going to have 3 answers this time, right? This is a cubic polynomial. And then to solve x squared plus 4 equals 0, we would subtract 4 to the other side. To get rid of the square, we would square root. There are 2 square roots of negative 4, right? We'd have a positive and a negative 2i. Because the square root of a negative is I, the square root of 4 is 2. It could be positive or negative, so there are 3 solutions. We've got a solution of negative 3, a solution of positive 2i, and a solution of negative 2i. All right, let's try another grouping. So we've got the first 2 terms. Greatest common factor is x squared, which leaves inside an x plus 1. Second group actually doesn't have a greatest common factor other than 1. However, that's what you would have to write. Like you could bring out a 1, it doesn't really do anything. You still have x plus 1. But then notice that makes the insides magically the same. So we can put our outsides together in a factor. So we'd have x squared plus 1 times that common x plus 1. So then we set our factors equal to 0 and solve them. So we would do x squared plus 1 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. So we know that x plus 1 gives us a solution of negative 1. To solve x squared plus 1, we subtract 1. So we're at x squared equals negative 1. To get rid of a square, we square root. So all the square roots of negative 1 would be positive and negative I, or positive and negative 1i. So we've got 3 answers, negative 1, positive I, and negative I. All right, so here's our sum of difference of 2 cubes. So you can see it's bigger now so that we can actually see it. So it's kind of similar to difference of 2 squares, except you're adding or subtracting 2 cubes. So you can see the pattern here. If you have a sum of 2 cubes, if you're adding 2 cubes, you would make it a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. And if you have a cubed minus b cubed, it factors down to a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. So in our first example here, we have x cubed minus 27. Well, 27 is a cube, right? That's like x cubed minus 3 cubed. So we'd be following our difference of 2 cubes pattern, right? And going with the formula, a would be x and b would be 3. So we would go, the pattern goes a minus b, so we would have x minus 3 times, the pattern goes a squared RA is x, we have x squared. Pattern goes plus, AB would be A times B, so x times 3 would be 3x, plus B squared, well B was 3, 3 squared is 9. That is the difference of two cubes pattern. So now we have two factors here. We can easily set x minus 3 equal to 0 and get our answer of 3. But this, my friends, is not riddleable. You can't riddle it. What multiplies to give you 9 adds to give you 3 doesn't happen. So you need a different method, like the quadratic formula. Right? So we have our x squared plus 3x plus 9 equals 0. I can't factor it. So I'm going to go b squared minus 4ac, quadratic formula. So b is 3 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 9. So that is what? 9 minus 36. I get negative 27. So then quadratic formula, x equals negative, b is 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 27 over 2 times a is 1. Clean it up. I get x equals negative 3 plus or minus, well, I know the square root of a negative is 5. 27 can go 9 times 3. 9 is 3 times 3. Couples go out, so I can bring out a 3. Singles stay in, so that 3 is stuck. So the square root of negative 27 is actually 3i radical 3 over 2 times 1 is 2. Look at your triangle. There's nothing that goes into 3, 3, and 2 besides 1, so that is simplest form. So those would be your 3 solutions. Let's try it again. So our next one says x cubed plus 8. Well, I know 8 is the same thing as 2 cubed. So I'm following the sum, because this is addition, of 2 cubes. So in the formula, it's like a is x, and our b would be 2. So you can look at the pattern on the previous page and see the sum of 2 cubes goes a plus b. So we have x plus 2 times RA squared would be x squared minus a times b, x times 2 would be 2x, plus b squared would be 2 squared, which is 4, equals 0. So we know x plus 2 equals 0 is going to give us our first solution of negative 2. And again, this is not a riddle, because what multiplies to give you 4 adds to give you negative 2? Nothing. So you have to quadratic formula it. So b squared, we'd have negative 2 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 4. So we're looking at 4 minus 16, which is negative 12. So x equals negative b is negative 2, so we're at positive 2, plus or minus the square root of negative 12 over 2 times a is 1. So x equals 2 plus or minus, let's see, 12, I can go 4 and 3. 4 is 2 and 2. Couples go out, so I bring out a 2. 3 is trapped. And then the square root of the negative is I. So the square root of negative 12 simplified is 2i radical 3 over 2 times 1 is 2. Oh, but check your triangle here. I can simplify. 2, 2, and 2 are all divisible by 2. Right, we can divide those. We get x equals 1 plus or minus 1i radical 3. Over 1, we wouldn't write, so there's our other 2 solutions. All right, if we're going to solve by factoring, we are going to have to get it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 125. So I've got 27x cubed minus 125 equals 0. So this is a difference of 2 cubes, right? This is a difference of 2 cubes because 27x cubed is the same thing as 3x quantity cubed minus 125 is 5 cubed. So following our pattern, A is going to be 3x and B is going to be 5. Following the difference of 2 cubes pattern, right? Because this was a subtraction. So we would go, starts off a minus b. We have 3x minus 5 times a squared. So I'm going to write it out so you can see it. So you have 3x squared plus a times b is going to be 3x times 5 plus b squared would give you the 5 squared. And usually you probably do these in your head. I just want you to see it on this one. So you have 3x minus 5. 3x quantity squared is going to give you 9x squared. 3x times 5 is 15x. 5 squared is 25. So then our first factor, we've got 3x minus 5 equals 0. So we add 5, divide by 3 to get one answer of 5/3. Then we know that the inside is not going to be able to be factored. It's never going to happen. So you have to use a quadratic formula. So b squared, we have 15 squared minus 4 times a is 9 times c is 25. So I'm going to type that in my calculator. I get negative 675. So then quadratic formula, x equals negative b is 15 plus or minus the square root of negative 675 over 2 times a is 9. 675, I know 25 is going to go in there. 25 goes in 27 times. 25 becomes 5 times 5. 27 is 3 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. Got a lot going on here. So I'm going to switch colors here. You know the square root of negative is I. Couples go out, so I can bring out a 5. Couples go out, I can bring out a 3. And then this single 3 is stuck inside. So I'm looking at x equals negative 15 plus or minus outside 3 times 5 is 15i. Radical stuck inside was 3 over 2 times 9 is 18. Oh, look at your triangle. 15, 15, and 18. I can reduce that. I'll go do it over here. Those are all divisible by 3. So our final answers would be x equals negative 5, negative 15 divided by 3, plus or minus 5i, radical 3, over 6. So there's your 3 solutions. Negative 5 plus and minus 5i radical 3 all over 6. There's 2 answers there. And then 5/3. All right, last one. This is not a sum or difference of 2 cubes. Just wanted you to see this. So we start by getting it equal to 0. So x to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 16 equals 0. So you can see this is a quadratic. The degree is 4. This is a quadratic, though, riddle. You can riddle this. You would get 2 binomials. The difference is what multiplies by itself to give you x to the 4th would be x squared times x squared. Then the riddle part is the same. What multiplies to give you 16 adds to give you negative 8 is going to be negative 4 and negative 4. Notice your factors are the same. So you actually end up with 4 roots, but you're only going to get 2 distinct answers. Because there's no need to solve x squared minus 4 twice. So we do x squared minus 4 equals 0. So when we add 4, we're at x squared equals 4. To get rid of the square, we square root. There's 2 square roots of 4. You could be positive 2, or you could be negative 2. That is the first part of 5-3. We'll check out the second part next day.